Hello and welcome. I am Ashley Stremme and we are at Port Royal Speedway, and I am joined with none other than the dream team, driver Lance Dewease, crew chief Davey Brown, and car owner Donnie Kreitz. It has been a remarkable 3 years that you guys have put together, and I'm going to start with you, Lance. It's actually a question for all of you, but I want to start with Lance and then we'll go to Donnie and then to you, Davey. What has this 3-year segment has been absolutely incredible, what you guys have done in just the short time and the minimal amount of races that you run. The three of you together is remarkable. What do you think really kind of encapsulates what you guys have done in these 3 years?
Well, I raced against the 69K my whole career. I knew how good the race car was, and I kind of was at a stage that we were thinking about getting out of it and retiring, and Donald was hunting a driver, so I called him, and it took us, 5 minutes on the phone to figure this out. You had to get permission from Davey first. Yeah. But, me and Donald kind of had it worked out pretty quickly. And, it's been great. It's unbelievable. It's neat. For me, it's just, it gave me more energy than I've had in a long time to hop back in a race car. And what's really neat about it is, it don't matter where we show up. I think we have a shot at winning. We don't win them all. But, at least we show up and we think we have a shot at winning. And, when I'm standing in victory lane, I tell everybody this, when I'm standing in victory lane and he's standing next to me, that's what it's all about to me. It's not about me. It's about doing it for this guy to my left. And, to be able to do what he does at his age and still have the drive to do it is just unbelievable to me.
And that's a great point, and we'll talk about that here in a minute. But Donnie, I want to hear your thoughts as well. You hit on it. It's the fact that you don't win them all, but what you have done has been extremely impressive. What do you think is the one cogwheel that essentially makes this team work the way it does?
Well, we run around the tracks around home that we know. So, Davey's run them forever. I've run them enough, and now Lance has certainly run them enough, so we've all been around these tracks and know them really well. That's probably the biggest asset, and it just helps you in making the right decisions. We're not always the fastest car all night long, like warm-up, time trials, heat race, dash, feature, but usually we got enough shots at it, we get it close for the feature, close enough that Lance can do his deal, and get the thing to the front.
And for you, Davey, I want to say that celebrating an 84th birthday, absolutely remarkable. I know a lot of people that are younger than you and are not in the shape or the have the mentality that you have and the mindset that you have. So that's truly incredible in its own. What is that driving force that keeps you on your toes week in and week out to give these guys the race car that they get?
Well, I've been doing it so long, and I've been lucky. My health's been pretty good over the years, and brain don't always work too good, but it's just a good team to be with. When Donnie asked me about Lance driving, I didn't even hesitate. You don't win all the races he win and not know how to drive. So it wasn't even a problem. And he's a good guy to work for and easy to get along with, and the whole deal just worked out.
It's truly incredible, and we talk about it all the time. There's guys out here that are half the age of some of you doing what you do on a weekly basis. And Davey, that's where I really want to point out, we talk about the technology and how much sprint car racing has changed over the years. And some guys will tell you, it hasn't changed much. Some will tell you it's changed a lot. But for you, you're still that same guy that was in the pits 30, 40 years ago, wrenching on race cars. For you, is it really a mental game on the technology side of things, or is it really all about grandma's recipe and just making sure that car's right every single week?
Well, the cars recently haven't changed a whole lot, more in shocks than anything, as they were years ago. So we're not really doing a whole lot different. It's just getting everything right, I started racing in 1953, which was a lot different then, and come up through big changes. But I wouldn't say the last 10 years things have changed all that much, except different tires they have us run. And so some nights you do it right, and some nights you don't, So hopefully we do it right. Sometimes we win when we don't do it right. amazingly enough.
I love it. We had talked earlier, and someone said that, if you didn't do it right, you were the first one to let people know that they didn't do it right. So
Well,
I want to know, who's the biggest cheerleader essentially on this team? Obviously you don't have great nights every single night. It's a roller coaster in the sprint car world. But who's the biggest cheerleader that really keeps this team, a head above water and really keeps them focused even on the bad nights?
Lance. Yeah, he's me and Davey are Mr. Pessimist, Lance is Mr. Optimistic. He thinks we can win every race, and me and Davey are always like, we'll be lucky to run fifth tonight, but Lance is the optimistic one, we usually it's just one foot in front of the other, just kind of do the blue collar thing, punch a clock and make sure everything's right, like Davey said, and, the biggest thing, no one here really has an ego. Even when we've struggled, or last night we only run fourth at the Grove. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's never a cross word said between us. No matter who it is, Davey or myself, never says, Lance, you weren't driving right. There was a better spot on the track or something. And Lance never comes in and throws his helmet and says, this thing was terrible tonight or something like that. So, we always just whatever we got to do to make, it better, even if we win. Me and Dave are on the phone all week trying to think of how we can get it better, even when we're winning. So, that's kind of the biggest thing.
And I'm glad you said that, Lance. I want you to kind of just follow up on that, because with what I think is very unique about your situation is how many people, you've driven for a lot of successful guys over the year, but how many of them have actually sat behind the wheel, know what you're feeling, know what you're talking about when you say you need this or that changed, and then you have a guy who can see that virtually on the racetrack before you even speak to him. Is that a different role that makes it that much easier?
Oh, it's a big role. First of all, there is no egos. And we all been around long enough. We've seen the highs and lows of this sport that has to offer. And, if we have a bad night, we have a bad night, and we go worry about the next race we're going to compete in. And that's the strong part of this team to me is, we ran fourth last night. We're worried about tonight now. And there's been nights that we won not being the best race car. There's been nights that we had the best race car and didn't win. So
sure.
To me, it's not, but we all have seen everything that can physically happen in this sport.
Yeah.
So that's the biggest advantage. We know the highs and we know the lows, and we just keep it level. And Davey's just amazing because I can climb out of the car and I know sooner you get out of the car and he'll tell me, well, that thing was no good tonight. And it don't matter if we won or ran third or ran fourth or whatever. And that just gives you confidence that everybody's on the same page. And there's the biggest thing, there's no egos. That's the biggest thing to me. And when we have our bad nights, it's a bad night as a team. When we win, and we win as a team. And, there's probably not a whole lot of teams can say that, truly. There's always, behind the doors, people, saying this about this person on a team or that person on a team. Where with this thing, it's just, you see what you get. We're all pretty honest with each other. And, there's no egos, and that's what makes this thing so good.
And Donnie, correct me if I'm wrong, but what I think is so unique about that and exactly what you're saying is you guys are doing this purely out of passion and for fun. It's not about points racing. It's not about getting those wins and solidifying that money week in and week out so you can go racing next week. This is truly just, I don't want to call it a hobby because it's not. We're passionate about it. But it's fun, and that's what kind of keeps it a different playing field than some of these guys that you are racing who are racing for a points battle or on a weekly basis.
You're all right. We need the money just to keep. All we care about is keeping the team so we can go to the next race, Otherwise, the money, not that it wouldn't matter, everyone, you need money, but basically you're 100% right. It's all about just whatever we have to do to win. And, we're better not. Some because of the age deal, not racing all the time
sure.
is why we don't, and our budget for the team, and just trying to make sure the car's right. It's hard, to run a lot of 80 or 100 races a year and really have the car 100% every night, So we just we know if we only run, 30, 35 races, we should be able to have a good car for Lance, and that's the start, and it makes it easier.
Mm-hmm. And Davey, you've seen it all among the years, and to you, this team and just what it's done and what you've been a part of, is it interesting, I guess is the word to use, in the fact that you build the motors, you work on these race cars, you make them happen week in and week out. Is there anything that's different in the years that you've been in the sport?
Well, things are always different. Motors keep running a little better all the time. Most of them run better than mine, but mine runs good enough, I guess. But it's not many. Well, nobody builds motors and works on cars anymore. You get your motors, you buy them from somebody, you have another guy works on the chassis, but we only run more than 30 races at the most a year, so if we run 70, 80 races, you'd have to have an outside engine builder. You just couldn't keep up. So I think it helps us doing all our own work, so we don't have to really depend on anybody or somebody telling me we've got the best, trickiest race motor ever, and then sometimes they run, sometimes they don't. So if it don't run, it's my fault. So I can't blame anybody else.
Absolutely. And you just brought up a great point. There isn't that guy who does both. Do you think that gives you an extra maybe a step ahead of everyone else because you are still building that motor and knowing how that race car's set up every week?
Well, I think it a little bit. I say if you run a lot of races, you can't do it that way. And even people who don't run a lot of races, nobody builds their own motors anymore. Years ago, you had to build your own motors because there was nobody to do it. I'm talking 30, 40, 50 years ago, or 60. But, I come where we started racing old Ford Flatheads, 1953, 54, and there was no professional motor builders for 30 years after that. So you get used to doing your own work, and you just continue it.
And pretty good for sure, because I spoke with Keith Kaufman earlier, and we talked about a World of Outlaws win that he had at Knoxville that was actually a modified motor that you had built, and they ended up changing the rule package for the following year. Do you remember that motor? I'm sure it's one of 9 million that you built.
You mean the one Wolfgang run? Or?
No, Keith Kaufman ran it. And he won at Knoxville with the World of Outlaws, and the following year they changed the engine package.
I was there with Keith. That it might have been my motor.
Okay.
That was probably a big block, I guess.
Yes, it was.
Modified. That was probably one of my big block motors. Yeah. So, we run a lot of big blocks, and then Wolfgang come in, and he hated big blocks. He didn't like them. So, we went to Knoxville at one time, and we qualified with a big block motor, and then we switched and put a small block motor in for the race, and he won the race, and it was a motor we never even ran before. So, but he liked the big, but he didn't like the way they drove. He didn't like them. So, Lynn Paxson was probably better driving a big block than anybody. He would figure out how to square the corner off, and he could make a long straightaway out of them. He was the best of driving a big block. He really was.
I love your memory lane trip there. What is probably, let's go this way. As a motor builder, what's probably one of your favorite tracks to race at as a motor builder?
I've always liked Williams Grove, and Port Royal is certainly now one of my favorites. They've done so much for this track and so much for this place. I don't think anybody's made the improvements they have, and their track is so smooth, and right now it's probably my favorite racetrack.
And I'm going to go to the racers of this. What are your two favorite tracks to race at, Lance?
Well, the Grove is one of the hardest racetracks in the country to run right.
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
So, I always lean towards that. But I'm like with Davey right now. This place here at Port Royal has done such a great job in the last 5-6 years to really make this facility, into something special in Central PA. Mm-hmm. And they're just keep going on and on with it. So right now they got great people involved. I've been here. As you know, Ashley, this place wasn't always on people's
right
best of lists. So I've raced here when this place was, all but being closed up, and the racetrack and the facility was in bad shape. And, it just shows you what hard work with the right people that want to see this place survive and thrive. And, they got a bunch of racers involved with it, and that really shows it, and they're doing a great job. So I'm like Davey, we really enjoy coming here to race. The Grove to me is one of the hardest racetracks in the country to race around, and I think that shows when outsiders come in there and they struggle big time. So, I think that's, those two places right now are top of my list.
And Williams Grove for sure, for one, because I think you're pretty close to being the winning driver there. Or that's got to be pretty high on your bucket list for sure, and a great accomplishment.
It is, but it's not. If I reach it, I think I will reach it, but it's not like last night. I wanted to win that race so bad, not to tie the record, is to win it for my old owner in the 461.
Right.
It just
Absolutely.
all the other stuff that comes with the wins will eventually come. But I was just worried about winning last night just for that reason. And I had a dry spell at the Grove for a little bit. We kind of were in control of the all-time win list, getting there pretty quick, and then we had a little dry spell, and Fred beat us to it. But it's just a unique place. And if you would look at that win list, probably the most impressive person on that win list is Steve Kinzer. I don't know where he ranks now. But, he'd race 8 times a year there and win all 8 races. So, I mean, he's pretty impressive on our all-time win list there. But, Lynn Paxson owned it for a while. If he would have stayed racing, I don't know where he would have set that bar at. But, we're fortunate enough to be in the hunt. Donald is up on the list pretty far, too. And, hopefully we can get it, whenever it comes.
Absolutely. And Donald, what about you? I mean, you've raced across this country. What are some of your favorite racetracks and why?
I always liked Hagerstown. We never really, they usually only had a couple races a year, but it was always a nice wide track, whether it was, tacky or it was slick, and you usually had a top and a bottom, and it had a lot of good racing there. So I always liked that, and Susquehanna was always one of my favorite tracks. We were always good there. When I think we won the first race when they opened back up. This was like in the mid 80s. It had been dormant for a while, but when they first started running sprint cars again there, we won, and it just kind of went from there. We were always good there, and naturally the Grove. Davey really helped me with the Grove. I was never as good at the Grove when I started. Like Lance said, the Grove is tough, and that's why it's tough for outsiders, But just because of the prestige of the place, and how tough it is, it's definitely neat to win there.
Davey, I want to talk about just kind of real quickly your career, because it started really fast for you. Early 50s, you decided to put a Monte Carlo together with, was it your brother or your buddy? And then 3 years later, you're off being a mechanic and winning races left and right. In your career, is there one race in particular that sticks out in your mind?
I would have to say winning Knoxville twice with Wolfgang was big. Winning Syracuse with the modifieds and the sprint cars was pretty. Winning some of those races with Donnie, particularly one time he passed Kinzer, I think, the last lap to win. And a lot of races. There's just so many. Can't really remember. And some of the races, Lynn Paxson, he won big races. And now with Lance, it's really, as you get older, I think it gets more and more important all the time, because, you don't have much longer to go. So,
right.
And I really hope Lance gets the most wins. That's big on my list.
I hear you. No pressure, but I make sure you get on that, Lance. I love it. And it's so cool to see how you guys mesh. And it was what you said at the beginning, you had to ask Davey permission if it was okay for Lance to drive your car. And that really speaks miles for you as a car owner, because it just shows how much respect that you have amongst each other to make things happen. And you guys have been together for several years and have worked hand in hand. So the respect level, I think, really is also something that brings a lot of recognition to your team. So kudos to you on that. But how hard has it been for you to kind of step back and step into that car ownership role when you are a racer true at heart?
I mean, there's nothing like driving the car naturally. So this is going to be the next best thing. And, once I got with concussion stuff, I guess it makes it easier because I just know that I wouldn't be able to do it.
Gives you a reason.
Right. So that probably makes it a lot easier. And naturally, because we're winning, it's been fun. I mean, nothing replaces winning. Probably if we weren't winning and things weren't going good, maybe it wouldn't last. But it's been going good. Everyone just gets along so well. And that makes it fun. I know Davey's having fun, so it's enjoyable to come to the track, and we just have a good time.
And it's so easy to see that because Lance, you said it, last night you wanted to win the Walt Dyer Classic for when you drove the 461, and the fact that you guys did t-shirts. But I think what was so amazing about all of that is they actually allowed the money that was made on the t-shirts to go back to the 69K. So the tributes and kind of just the fact that you guys are so humble amongst each other and with everyone else, it really shows your true character of what you've brought to the table. And that I truly believe that's why you're being rewarded the way that you are with what you guys have done in the 3 years. It's absolutely phenomenal. And I don't even know what to say. They call you the dream team. Sure, it's a name slapped on you three guys, and it's absolutely phenomenal. But could you write a better story for the 69K these last 3 years?
Oh, absolutely not. It's good how we're all, we hate to say at the end of our career, but we kind of all were and probably are, and I think that's why the fans have accepted it, because normally when you win a lot, the boos are coming, and there's certainly people that aren't fans of ours,
Sure.
from winning all the time, but mostly it seems like we've gotten a lot, and they normally like older guys that still can get it done. That's just a natural thing
Absolutely.
in sports, and it's certainly been way above anything we could have anticipated running this good. You can think it's tough in this area, and because we're only running the big races, it's not like, and not to pick on anyone, but if you go run a Saturday night show,
Sure.
the fields are split up, and
Yep.
maybe not everyone's there, but we only run the races when all the good cars are there, even if it's only the PA cars, but usually it's either an outlaw or an all-star show or all the PA cars. And our win percentage, it's hard to win 1 out of 10 of them, and we've been winning almost half of them. So it's just really incredible. We know it can end any day, but
Sure.
hopefully we can keep it going somehow.
And Davey, with you traveling the country and working with the guys that you've worked with over the years, why do you think sprint car racing is so strong in Central Pennsylvania?
Well, I just think it's you have so many local fans and local drivers, and there's so many good cars here. I mean, you got 20 cars could easily win a race on any night. You don't have that many places for local. And, it's just been a Central Pennsylvania thing for just, since the 50s, really. And they weren't sprint cars then, but, we just have a lot of fans. And like I say, you easily got 20 cars that could go out and win a race on every night. I don't think you'll find that in most local races like that. So you never know who's going to win. Could be anybody. There's no slow cars anymore.
That's very true. And Lance, we've talked about this earlier with car owners. Back 10, 15, 20 years ago, car owners were very prominent, the Al Hamiltons, the Bob Weicherts. You don't see that as much today as you did back then. Do you have any reasoning as to why that is?
Well, there's a lot of reasons. I mean, economy, the purses never kept up good enough. And I'm not talking about the winner's share. I'm talking about back through. Mm-hmm. When I first started racing sprint cars, we could make ends meet and be able to show up at the next race. Today that's very hard to do if you're not running up front. Well, to run up front today, you have to spend some serious money. with the engine program, like Davey said, people are buying motors now. They're anywhere from 45 to whatever you want to hear, 70,000 for one engine. Not a lot of people can afford that. So now you have more family deals, coming into the sport. But you kind of have that in all motorsports. You look at NASCAR, there's not a whole lot of teams there now like there used to be. You have the big four, I guess, really, that own a lot of cars. And then you have the couple other teams. But, I'm sure they would like to have more owners in their sport, too, just like all sports. So it's just tough. The money that's involved in racing, and I'm talking any racing right now, is, for me to take my 11-year-old son to go race go-karts costs some pretty good money now. So, it's just the money involved in racing is just there, now compared to what it was when I started. And I know it was different from when Davey started and, when Donald, he started a little bit before me. So, I mean, it's just, you just can't go back. People like to go back. I would love to go back to how I raced in, I would say, 90s. Probably was some of the best racing I've been around. But it's hard to go backwards. You just can't,
Sure.
All sports, don't matter what it is, it's hard to back up.
And for you, Donald, has that been a transition as well, going from the driver to owner side in the sense of owning a car financially? I mean, I know you did before when you had the 69K and you were driving it, but is it different now with Lance behind the wheel?
Definitely. Lance probably doesn't know it, but I mean, I spend a lot more money because when me and Lance made the deal for him to drive the car, I knew his capabilities, and it was like I had this huge responsibility on my shoulders to give him, a great car, or as good a one as we could, more so than when I was driving. You kind of, cut corners, and I'd say, that was good enough or whatever. I didn't want to do that for him, right away. We got new heads and updated the engines and, try and keep new tires on where, more than when I drove the car, you don't want to be the weak link out of the three. And I knew from racing with Lance his whole career, one thing I would say about him, he brings it every night, and even though, I knew him, but we never went out to dinner or anything like that before. Since he's been driving the car, he's never once, and I know when I've driven, I've said this already, I don't feel like great tonight or something, or I'd say to Davey, I'm going to need some help tonight or something. I'm off tonight or something like that. Lance never once come to the races and says, Donald, I'm not feeling that good tonight. I'm sick, or anything. He brings it every single night, and it puts a responsibility, on myself to give him a good car. And I know Davey feels the same way. Me and him have talking about it. He feels bad. He really wants to do the motors as good as he can for Lance, and same with the chassis setups at the track, because no one they don't want it to be their fault why we don't win.
Well, I'm truly honored to not only be sitting beside three Sprint Car Hall of Famers, but I'm also honored to be watching history being written right now with what you guys are doing this season. Thank you so much. This is the Dream Team. Thank you so much for joining me. I truly appreciate it.
Thanks for having us, Ashley.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
That's a wrap.